Hail, welcome. It's me, Oni Senshi. I am here to review The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 3 for you guys. Chapter 19, The Convert. So I watched this one pretty much immediately as it was released. And I've got to say, overall impression, spoiler-free reaction to this is it was probably the weakest episode of The Mandalorian released. In fact, I would say it was about on par with some of the non-Mandalorian episodes of Book of Boba Fett, on par with Obi-Wan, which I did not like at all, on par with, well, maybe a bit worse than Andor. There were some Andor-type sequences and scenes, maybe even a whole section of this show was like Andor. Definitely not as good as some of the animated Star Wars that we've received, and on par with some of it as well. So let's get into the spoilers straight away. Let's get right to it. So if you don't want spoilers, get out of Dodge. Here we go. We are introduced again, or reset the scene, in the mines below Mandalore at the Living Waters, and Din Djarin comes to, and Bo-Katan is there, and Din decides to get some of the water and put it in a file so that he has proof that he has been to the Living Waters. Bo-Katan asks him if he saw anything when he was in the water. And he says, no, I just fell and I saw, the rock passing by as I fell to the bottom and sunk to the bottom of the body of water. And she says, did you see anything alive? And he says, what do you mean? And she says, it doesn't matter, or never mind, something to that effect. So clearly this mythosaur is on her mind, and she wanted to find out if Din Djarin knew anything about it. But since he didn't know anything about it, she's going to keep it close to her chest. She's not going to tell him or anybody else that she saw this thing. Anyway, she says, okay, let's get out of here. And they both hop into her ship. And en route to Kalevala, they are attacked by 5 TIE Interceptors. TIE Interceptor is a cooler ship. If you're not familiar with it, for those of us gamers who used to play the TIE Fighter series and the X-Wing series, we're familiar with the TIE Interceptor. It's a stronger version of the TIE Fighter, and Din Djarin makes a comment to that effect as well. It's got shields, whereas the TIE Fighter doesn't have shields, and it's got better weapon systems as well. So it's a tougher version of the TIE Fighter. Very cool ship. I think the first time we saw it was in the Empire Strikes Back in the Imperial fleet. So what's happening is they decide, well, we're going to have to fight these guys, and they send Din Djarin to the tail gun. So he's firing off at these guys to try to back them off a bit with the tail gun, and they're going to head to Kalevala. And the plan is that the Mandalorian is going to hop out of Bo-Katan's ship and get down to his Naboo starfighter, his heavily modified N1 starfighter, so they can at least attack this group as a pair. And that's exactly what he does. It's a very cool sequence, how he hops out of her ship and comes down and lands beside his, hops in just before you see this TIE fighter that's approaching in the distance. He's coming in for a strafing run, and he basically hops into his Naboo starfighter and takes off and avoids the attack. Not only does he avoid the attack, he goes vertical, does a maneuver kind of like a hammerhead stall, and comes back and shoots it with a torpedo and destroys it. He destroys the TIE Interceptor. Now, I've got quite a bit of gaming time, like I've already said. I've got a lot of gaming time in a game called Il-2 Sturmovik Online, which was an old fighter simulator, probably around early 2000s. I was doing a lot of gaming with that, 2005, thereabouts, and continued doing that for years. We'd just be a group of guys on online guys, and we'd get together and do this World War II style dogfighting. And every time somebody was on my tail, and they didn't have to be close on my tail either, they could be pursuing at a distance. Every time I tried a stall turn or a hammerhead stall or a hammerhead to avoid or get out or try to turn the tables on an opponent, I got shot to hell. Because what happens when you go vertical and you slow down like that, you are completely stationary in their gun sights for a very long period of time. Not only as you're decelerating, but also as you rotate, and then you when you have to accelerate. So you are a very stationary target and easy to zero in on. So that's a little unrealistic about how they've done this. But, it was exciting. Bo-Katan is meanwhile being pursued by other TIE interceptors, and she's doing some fancy flying close to the ground. We get a Top Gun Maverick type of sequence where she flies through a canyon and around some cliffs, uses the cliffs to dispatch some of them, and they do some really good dogfighting with Bo-Katan and Din Djarin working together to set up the TIE interceptors to get shot down. So he takes down one of them, and then she takes down the last by doing, she kind of does an inversion maneuver where she rotates on the spot, and I like how they use the wing of the ship to help the ship turn aerodynamically, and then she kills the engine and it falls, and you see R5D4 kind of float up, and I thought that was very cool. And then she dispatches the last of the TIE interceptors, and she and Din Djarin form on each other and start heading towards her castle. Well, on Din Djarin's radar scope, well, I don't know if it's radar, but he just calls it a scope. He sees that there are 3 other paints. There are 3 other targets in the area, and they see an explosion up over the cliff near where the castle is. And it turns out that the castle on Kalevala has been bombed by TIE bombers. And Bo-Katan gets very angry and is out for blood. They know where the TIE bombers are. They're still there on their scope, and she fires off a missile and takes one out. She's pursuing the other 2 when a whole bunch of new paints appear on Din Djarin's scope, and it turns out that it's upwards of 20 TIE interceptors. So they make a comment about local warlords not having this kind of firepower, and immediately my mind jumps to Grand Admiral Thrawn. Maybe we're introducing Thrawn's fleet here. They don't go any deeper into it, though. Basically, Din Djarin says to Bo-Katan, I'm going to send you some coordinates for a hyperspace jump. Let's get out of here. Let's book it, because if we hang around, we just can't fight this many TIE interceptors, and it's going to be a bloodbath. She agrees, and then off they go, and they do their hyperspace jump. Now, this is the one piece of bread in what we would refer to as a poop sandwich. It used to be that when we would give somebody feedback that was working for us, I used to work in restaurants, if they were doing something wrong, we would give them feedback on how to not do that behavior. So say, for instance, somebody was doing something like that wrong, and say, hey, man, you really did a bang-up job today online. Thanks very much. Man, the orders were coming thick and fast, and you handled that really well. But one thing I did notice was when you put the chicken away, you didn't rotate it. It's really important that we rotate that chicken. So we use the oldest stock first and don't end up with chicken that's 3 months old in the fridge, okay? But man, I really look forward to working with you again and see a really good performance like I saw today. So that would be a poop sandwich, right? That would be, this is what you did well. This is the crap I need you to fix. But man, aren't you good at this thing? Okay, that's what we call the poop sandwich. Now, that's exactly what this episode is. And the next section is the poop section. We go back to Dr. Pershing, which is this guy, in case you forget who he is. We saw him in season 1. He was the guy who was experimenting on Grogu, or doing whatever he had to do with Grogu. And here he is. He's in the New Republic in the theater here where Anakin and Palpatine were talking about the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise. I guess it's that same theater. And he's been able, I guess, to garner this audience. We have an audience of definitely looks like 10,000 or so, or maybe even upwards of that. So he can tell them that he's reformed. I mean, why is he doing this? What am I watching? Is this to convince the New Republic he's reformed and won't do any mad scientist stuff? Clearly, he must have access to some important information. Clearly, he's a concern for the general. Is this the general public? Are they politicians? It doesn't really tell you who these people are. Are they socialites, the rich of Coruscant? Who knows? Who knows who these people are? And who knows why he's telling him this? Maybe he's hyper important. Maybe he's gaining access to a lab. But no, that's not the case. It turns out he's just a cubicle worker. He's a cubicle worker doing inventory on stock that is going to be destroyed. So Imperial equipment. He says it's perfectly functional. This guy that he's talking to says, "Wow, I didn't realize how much experience you had. I got your talk last night, and isn't it amazing that they put you down here?" So clearly, his abilities are far exceed his current station in the New Republic. So I wonder why he was, delivering this speech if he's just a cubicle guy. Doesn't make any sense at all to me. Now, you remember the officer from Moff Gideon's ship, this one? She befriends him, and she starts hanging around him, and she gets him some Imperial biscuits that he used to like. And she starts talking about what's good for the New Republic, and that genetic experimentation and being able to do genetic things like grow new knees and grow new ears and grow new eyes for people of the New Republic would be beneficial, so people can have organ transplants. He talks about his mother and how his mother, her heart gave up when he was a boy, and that's how he decided to be a geneticist, because he wanted to be able to grow her a new heart, which he could do now in the Empire. Blah, 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 blah. Am I boring you? Because it was freaking boring me. This whole 40-minute snooze fest is so that this officer can get access to the gear to mind wipe Dr. Pershing. Yawn. The most boring Star Trek, or Star Wars. Yeah, we're in the habit of talking about Star Trek. The most boring Star Wars released since probably the sequel trilogy, right? Just no fun at all. So she's manipulative. That's what we establish here. She's manipulative, clearly working in the interest of Moff Gideon, and I'm hoping Grand Admiral Thrawn. Maybe let's have some excitement. Or it could be that pirate guy from episode 1 or of this series. Who knows? Who knows what's going on? This takes us all the way from 9 minutes and 47 seconds into the episode, and that's including the opening review, the opening recap, and the opening sequence. That took us up to 9 minutes and 47 seconds. This whole smooth snooze fest, right to 47 minutes and 40. Almost 40 minutes of this absolute boring rubbish. Then we finally get back to the Mandalorian, and we find where he has taken Bo-Katan is to his old covert. They stroll on up. You see Baby Yoda's there. Baby Yoda hasn't done much. He's just kind of in the background in this one. They stroll up to the covert, and they get stopped by Mandalorian Jon Favreau, who says, you are not allowed. Basically, you're an outcast. You're not a Mandalorian. And Din Djarin says, actually, that's wrong. I've been redeemed. I have bathed in the living waters below Mandalore. Maybe, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's Mythosaur wee-wee. Who knows? But basically, Mandalorian Jon Favreau allows Din Djarin to come on in and bring Bo-Katan in as his guest to have a chat with Paz Vizsla. He hands her the file of the living waters, and she checks it. She's got a method to check it, and she confirms that it is indeed proof that he's bathed in the living waters of Mandalore, and therefore pronounces Din Djarin redeemed. Now, she also says something very interesting to Bo-Katan. She says, according to Creed, if you haven't removed your helmet, and Bo-Katan says, no, I haven't removed it since I bathed in the waters. She says, you can live as one of us in this covert. Also, you may leave at any time. We accept you as one of us. As long as you don't remove your helmet, you can live as one of us. And she seems moved by this. Everybody comes and pats, Bo-Katan on the shoulder, and they pat Din Djarin on the shoulder as well, and welcome them back into the clan. All except for Mandalorian Jon Favreau. He's kind of standoffish and stands off to the side. I don't know if there's any significance in that. Maybe not. And then we close out the episode with a view of the sculpture of the Mythosaur skull, which is hanging on the wall in her armory, in Paz Vizsla's armory. So this is just a callback to remind us what Bo-Katan saw in the living waters beneath Mandalore, beneath mines. So overall, the episode finishes nicely, much nicer than that whole middle section, which was an incredible snooze fest. At the time, I was almost like DVD, Victor Van Doomcock, where I was, I mean, the family was asleep, so I couldn't shout at the screen, but I kept saying out loud, what am I watching? This is so boring. Who wrote this garbage? And that's exactly how I felt about it. So we get this nice slice of bread at the end, and then all the poop in the middle, and a nice slice of bread in the beginning. And that's the best way to describe this episode. It is a poop sandwich. I would rate this episode 3, maybe 3.5 out of 10. I would have given the first sequence an 8. I would have given this second sequence probably 7.5. But everything in the middle, 1 out of 10. It was just rubbish, crap, slow moving. Was it supposed to be a slow burn? Well, it was slow, but there was no burning going on. It was just boring rubbish. They tried to do a bit of fan service where there was a Mon Calamari that was doing the mind-altering device, the kind of rehabilitation device on Dr. Pershing. And Dr. Pershing's there, and he looks up to the Mon Cal, and he says, "This feels like a trap." And the Mon Cal waits for a beat and looks off to the side. And that was the highlight of the entire 40 minutes in the middle of this episode. And, a bit of fan service, because there's that whole "it's a trap," thing from Return of the Jedi with the Mon Cal. But other than that, it's just, you know what? The episode was exhausting. It was exhausting to watch. Anyway, tell me what you think. Did you enjoy the episode? If you did, tell me why you enjoyed it. I'd be really interested to hear it, and maybe have a bit of a conversation with some people as to what's going on. If you like the stream, thanks very much. I'd really appreciate a thumbs up. If you could share and subscribe, that would be even better for Necro's channel. I'm sure he'll really appreciate that. And if you didn't like it, well, thanks for listening this long. I appreciate you hanging around and maybe listening to an opinion that you don't share. I think that's our way forward. None of this, if you don't think the way I do, well, then stuff you. No, that's not the type of people we should be. So let's try to all get along, even in our disagreements. So hope to catch you for our next review. We're going to be reviewing Picard. Episode 5, I believe, is the one that's coming up next. And we'll try to get that review out to you pretty quick. Until then, all the best. Hope you have a great day. Cheers.